Hi, this is Joe Speaks Truth. Just 3 years ago, New York City was placed under the harshest lockdowns out of the whole country. While things seem that they're going back to normal, I want to invite you all to listen to the untold stories of the many New Yorkers that had to survive lockdowns and vaccine mandates.
Hello everyone, this is Joe Speaks Truth, and today I have Carin, who was a FDNY, which stands for Fire Department Paramedic. How are you doing today, Carin?
I'm doing well.
Well, I'm so glad to have you here because I feel like with you, there's so many things to unpack regarding what was really going on, were a lot of people dying or whatever, we will see. So let me ask you, why did you become a paramedic?
I know I wanted to be in the health field. Initially, I really enjoyed kids and I enjoyed the medical field. So I kind of put two and two together. So initially I wanted to be like a pediatrician. So I figured while going to school for that, I would do something where I could learn behind the scenes because I'm really hands-on. So I decided to become a EMT and then promote to paramedic.
Right. How was life, when I say life in general, as far as like your profession, family life, social life, how was that before the year 2020?
Pretty good. I was finally getting stable, like financially, making plans for vacations, family time, friend time. Pretty good, pretty decent.
Mm-hmm. And when they announced that the world had to be shut down because there was a global pandemic and that it was only going to take 2 weeks to slow down the spread, what was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction, I didn't think it would be that quick. I did have a little bit of fear of the virus, not at first, because it was like it would affect only the old or people that had underlying health issues or kids. So I'm like, well, I'm not in that category. I'm pretty healthy. I think if I got it, I would be okay. And then the story changed that it's kind of like it affected anybody, whether you're healthy, young. And I'm like, okay, maybe if I get it, I might be okay initially, but what's the long-term effects, right? So what if it stays in my system and something comes up later? So I started to have fear, but it didn't last very long.
Right. As time went by, when you saw that people were being sent home, right, and told that they can't be at work, and then it escalated. The Fauci initially said that masks were a false sense of protection, but then he was recommending that people should use it. And especially here in New York City, people weren't really crazy with the mask, and people were being denied service. I remember getting yelled at for going to places and being denied service because I refused to abide by the mandates, which is not really a law. And even if it was a law, I have every right to disobey laws that I think are unjust. And then, everything kept getting shut down. The small businesses, we couldn't travel normally anymore. Church and other places of worship were shut down. But the abortion clinics and the liquor store were considered essential. But every other part of normal life, even going to the beach, I remember seeing people getting arrested because they were just going to the beach by themselves. And as per the authorities, they felt like you're disobeying, and so therefore we need to arrest you for non-compliance. So what were you thinking? What was going through your head once you saw that everything kept escalating and it just didn't stop with the 2 weeks?
Well, so initially the whole mask thing was interesting for me. I was actually injured in FDNY at the time. So I was working in our pharmacy, and we were initially told that we're not going to get masks because we're not going to be affected. And then people started getting COVID at the pharmacy, and then we were all of a sudden given masks. So I think I wore the mask for like the first week or two. And it wasn't until I was like in a Target, not wearing a mask yet because it wasn't fully forced for stores, that I saw a woman who wrapped her entire face and neck with saran wrap.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Entire face and neck. And like she had like a little breathing room up here, and I just kept staring at her, and I'm like, this can't be what people are doing. And I just looked at that, I'm like, something's wrong. And that's when I actually Googled like the particle size of COVID, and the size that the N95 mask, which is supposed to have the most protection, what it would filter and what it would protect you against. And the particle of COVID was smaller than what the N95 could filter. So if it could pass through the N95, anything else less than is not going to protect you. And what's interesting with the fire department is every year you go to a annual medical and they refit you for N95s. And they tell you there, you have to change your N95 every half an hour because it breaks down and it's no longer adequate. But then they're here telling us to reuse the same N95 and put it in paper bags and reuse and reuse and reuse. So what's the protection?
Right. And wouldn't doing that actually make people sick?
Yes, because you have bacteria in your mouth and you're people at work, you just quickly eat a meal, you're putting a mask on, you're breathing any type of bacteria in that mask, you're rebreathing it and easily are going to get an infection or bad hygiene, oral hygiene, either or, which could lead to another infection. So it seems so pointless and stupid. And then it just got sillier. Like you need to wear 2 masks for it to work. And then it was like, well, you can't go into these businesses if you have to wear a mask. And so I remember if I was to go into a restaurant before they required vaccines, I had to wear a mask to walk in, but as soon as I got to the bar or the table, I could take it off because it doesn't exist there. And I'm like,
right.
I'm not doing that.
Right.
I'm not even going to wear it to walk to the table. What's the difference? It makes no difference. So it just got dumber and dumber. And the more that I saw that you can't go into stores, you can't go into restaurants because you don't have a mask, I'm like, this is going to be really bad. It's only going to get worse from here.
Right. So it seems like from the beginning, you were questioning things. You put 1 and 2 together, and unlike many New Yorkers, you were not falling for the scam. You were smart enough to even research about the size of the particle of COVID or whatnot. Because I remember that one being one of the things that I would tell people, like the particle size is so small, it's just gonna get through your mask. The mask is useless, and even on the box it says it doesn't protect you against any viruses, right? So it's just really bizarre. Like many places here were not allowing us. And I remember one time I almost got into a physical altercation with a restaurant worker because she wanted me to put on the mask, like what you were just explaining, to walk inside the restaurant. And I'm like, I'm already inside the restaurant. And by the time you're sitting here talking to me, if I'm sick, which I wasn't sick, and I'm actually spreading a virus, you just got the virus because you're sitting there talking to me or whatever. And I'm like, I don't see no point of walking 2 seconds inside a place to sit down on my chair and then I take it off. And the virus is so smart. Coronavirus is so intelligent that it knows, hey, she's eating. She's in a group setting. Pause. Once she stops chewing her last bite, you had to put the mask up again when you get up because we cannot infect anybody. Like it's just bizarre that people didn't put 1 and 2 together. Because I think it was so obvious and right in our faces that I just don't get it. But I do understand because the propaganda was huge. The fear tactics was huge. And when fear is in play, most people's brain is going to get hijacked. So it takes away your ability to rationalize things and actually make the proper decision that's actually beneficial for you versus going along with things that eventually over time can end up making you sick. Like just like you said with like the mask had to be changed every 30 minutes. I remember people reusing the same mask for days. I remember seeing children that had dirty masks and I had to tell like the parent like, hey, like I did a summer program one time and I was like, listen, your child, I told him to remove the mask because the mask is so dirty that I'm afraid he's going to get sick. And I'm talking about like a 7-year-old, 8-year-old. Like, don't you think that was completely insanity? Just insane. So let me continue to ask you. So, okay, so they announced everything. You put 1 and 2 together. What was really happening? Because as per mainstream media, they had a tracker on TV keeping the tolls of the people that were allegedly dying from COVID, right? And I think that was a wonderful advertisement weapon because since people are seeing this tracker on TV, they're thinking, oh my God, this is serious. I had to stay home instead of actually maybe going outside to explore and see, hey, are people really dying? Because in China, people were dropping dead on the sidewalk with masks on. But I noticed that didn't happen anywhere else but China. So can you let us know what was really happening? What did you witness?
So I was injured at the time, so I was working in the pharmacy, so I wasn't on the street in the very beginning. But just on behalf of my partners, they're not here to corroborate, but they did say that everybody got marked as COVID. So if you had the MVA, the motor vehicle accident, the person that you're taking to the hospital, they still got marked as COVID along with your motor vehicle accident, because your paperwork, you have to like tick boxes on what is the issue, illness or injury. So everybody got marked as COVID. So it just drove the numbers up. But when I was out there in the field shortly after like the big mayhem of it, I would say I didn't see that. I did not see the numbers. We had a lot more downtime. So when I was injured, my partners would say that they had no downtime. It was call after call after call after call, whether it's sick or injury, whatever it was. Again, they were still marked as COVID. If they stubbed their toe or they have a hangnail and they want to go to the hospital, they still were marked as COVID. So when I was out there, the numbers weren't going up. And I even had a patient that the family member was a nurse, and she also asked me, she's like, are you seeing a lot of COVID cases? And I'm like, no. She's like, me either. There's nobody in the hospital, but they keep saying the numbers are going up. I'm like, I know. I don't know where they're getting these numbers. Where are people going to that the numbers are going up? Because I wasn't getting them.
Why do you think that they made hospitals do that? Just label everything COVID?
Money. You get a certain amount of money, and I'm not going to say how much because I don't want to wrongly say it, but they get a certain amount for a COVID patient, and if they're admitted with COVID, they get even more money. Possibly the same with EMS as well. They probably get some money for any patient that's considered COVID.
As time went by, did you have more coworkers that started to see like, hey, something is wrong? Were they vocal about it, or was just everything hush hush?
It was like a hush form of vocal. Like they would talk to each other, but not speaking up and out about anything.
Was it because you feel that they were scared of possibly losing their career if they spoke,
I honestly got the intention that they just didn't care to speak up for themselves or other people. There was a lot of chatter before the mandates came down, so people were talking about it. They were like, either it's not that it's not real, but it wasn't as bad because they got COVID, or they also saw that the numbers were going up, but we weren't getting a lot of COVID cases. So it was similar talk. But once the mandate came down, there was a initial pushback. Like you saw how many people walked over that bridge. So initially people wanted to put their foot down, whether they were vaccinated and wanted to support the unvaccinated, or they never wanted to get the vaccine. But when it came down to like the deadline, there was more and more quietness and more compliance.
All right. Well, that's kind of like what I saw in my school. Initially, the first week, it was 62. Myself included, unvaccinated staff members, and then as the weeks went by, the numbers started to just decline. And I'm like, I don't understand what's happening, because listen, I understand like paramedics and firefighters and like police officers, right? And I'm gonna say this, and I don't care who disagrees with this or not, who agrees or disagrees. If everybody would have walked out of the job, granted, like I said, in your situation, it could have resulted like people losing their lives because you were, paramedic, and there's doctors and nurses that had to tend to people and all of that, and the firefighters had to like tend to in case of a fire, etc. I get that, right? But if we would have just 1 week, let's just do 1 week, nobody goes to work. Do you think that the city was going to be able to maintain itself? Do you think the mayor, de Blasio, who started this bull crap and stuff, and then passed the torch to Adams, do you think New York City would have been able to operate if the MTA said we're not driving the trains? No, it would have taken honestly, I think maybe even less than a week to send the message like, okay, we're not going to work. So what are you guys going to do?
Yes, I think it was strategic from the city. So if I'm correct, the MTA didn't even have a mandate.
Right, they didn't have a mandate.
So look at how they started, right? So they started with the teachers. So if they stand up and, kids can't go to school, not that big of a deal. We'll handle it. And most people complied. Great. We got a good number of teachers to comply. Now we could go after city workers. and they got enough city workers to comply. But I think they knew if they went down to MTA and MTA stood up, the city doesn't run. And I think that was a bigger risk. And I think seeing how many people stood up initially with us, they didn't want to take that risk. That's my opinion.
That would have been pretty historic, to be honest, because that would have sent a message like, we're not taking your bull crap. But unfortunately, most people give in to the whole mandate stuff. But let me ask you, when did you make the decision that you were not going to take this vaccine or gene therapy, whatever you want to call it?
It was a hard decision. Not initially. Before it was a mandate, I remember my friend asked me, if they came out with a vaccine, would you take it? And I was like, hell no. I'm not for taking medication if I don't need it, or vaccines or gene therapy, whatever you want to call it. I don't get the flu shot every year, deny it, and I don't lose my job over it.
I was going to say that.
So it wasn't an issue until it was a mandation. And as soon as it became a mandation, I still was like, I'm not going to do it. And the closer the time got to me being laid off, I had like a mental, emotional battle within my head, because I fought really hard to get this career. I didn't come from much, so me actually having a career with the pension was big. And how
many years were you?
10 years. So am I going to give that all up for a stupid shot? And mind you, people said too, why don't you get a fake vaccine? It was offered, and I wasn't going to go that way either. If I'm not getting it, I'm not getting it real or fake. So up until the exact day, it was like, I would call my cousin, I think every day, like 3-4 times a day. Should I just do it? Should I not? No, I'm not going to do it. Definitely not going to do it. Why would I give up everything I believe in just for a career where they could drop you for any reason at any moment? You're just a number to this job. You're nothing more. So if they don't get me here, they'll get me later. And if I comply at the first shot, who's to say they won't mandate boosters? Who say they won't mandate 4, 5, 6 shots? So if I put my foot down, if I comply for the first one and I keep my job, and then I put my foot down for any following, what was the point? I just bought myself a little bit of time. And I also didn't even bother putting in exemptions, because I didn't want to fight my religion or my faith. And I'm like, I'm not going to stand in front of somebody to prove my faith. I'm not going to do that. So I didn't put any exemptions in. And I was like, this is unconstitutional, unmoral, unethical. Like, I thought it would be over in courts very soon. And I was mistaken, because it clearly isn't, which has caused obviously a lot more emotional, mental turmoil.
When was your last day of work, and financially, how did that even impact you?
November 1st, 2021. Right?
Yeah, it was 2021.
2021, yeah, because then 2022 is when I was fired. So November 1st, 2021. So EMS in general, we're like the lowest paid emergency service, FDNY EMS. So I was not completely paycheck to paycheck, but I was making it by with some. And then a month before November 1st, I lost my uncle. So whatever I had saved, I had to use to bury him. Sorry.
No, don't have to apologize.
And then a month later, I was placed on leave without pay. So I really didn't have anything. I used whatever I had.
And you were not able to apply for unemployment, correct?
I was placed on leave without pay and told I cannot even work any other gainful employment until they finally terminated me February 11th.
After 10 years.
10 years.
Did any of your coworkers or any of, your higher ups, did anybody check up on you to see, hey, are you okay financially? Are you okay emotionally? Do you need anything?
I had 2 partners that randomly would check up, my last 2 partners. And then my captain at the time, I think, called me like 6 months later to not necessarily check how I was, but to understand what I was going to do. And other than that, people that I've worked side by side for longer, people at stations that I've been at much longer, I haven't heard anything from them. They'll maybe write something on social media, in my private DMs, we support you, we support your decision in the beginning, and that was it.
Well, I think that's what I've been hearing from a lot of people. I hate to say it, but a lot of people just didn't care to really check up on anybody. It's almost like there's just no humanity, because I don't know. I think even if I would have gotten vaccinated, if it was one person that would have gotten fired from my school, I think I would have ended up getting fired with them too, just because I couldn't sit back and just watch that happen. Because I remember, like, looking back in history when I was in school, how they spoke about slavery and the Holocaust. What would you do? Would you I don't know, help a slave or runaway slave? Would you help Anne Frank? And most people pretend like, oh yeah, if something like that was to happen, I would do the right thing. I would hide the Jews in my house. I would house a runaway slave. But right now, this is happening in a different way, because this is a different type of slavery and abuse. It's mental, it's spiritual. And many people think that abuse is just when you're being physically hit or being physically restrained. But mental and emotional abuse is so subtle.
Yeah.
It could be right in your face and people can't even see that you're being abused. And this was also financial abuse, creating the need of dependency. When we're talking about you are giving me an ultimatum, you're not saying, okay, we have this available, take it or don't take it, whatever. No, you're saying, if you don't take it, you can't work. If you don't take it, you can't freely travel. If you don't take it, you can't go to a restaurant, you can't go to the movie theaters. And this happened here in New York City. And everyone else is pretending like, oh, it was your fault. Nothing happened. You had a choice. No, a choice would be, whatever you decide to do, I respect that, and I'll leave you alone.
Exactly.
Coercion and threatening people and making it so harder for us to live, to the point that they didn't even let us to apply for unemployment, seems to me like it was punishment for not doing what I told you to do. Do as I say, not as I do, which is hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. And let me ask you, to this day, obviously you haven't gotten back your job. Mm-mm. They have removed the mandates now in 2023. What would be if you wanted to get your job back? What would that be? You would have to start over again?
So they changed a couple of times what they would do. So at first it was, you wouldn't necessarily get your position back. You could apply for another city position. So for example, maybe they don't have paramedic available, but I can apply for an EMT, who's a title underneath that, meaning less pay, less skills that you use. Mm-hmm. So I could start over with pay, I could start over with title, essentially everything just from the bottom, and work my way back up. Mm-hmm. And then they changed that. They said, well, you can keep your position, you could keep your top pay, you could keep your salary, but you have to waive any lawsuits for back pay or your civil rights. What does that entail? I don't know. So we've had a meeting with our union and our union lawyer, and they also don't know. So they asked specific questions to be very specific of what that means to the city, and we have yet to get a response of what that will entail. So if we're already a plaintiff for a lawsuit, does that mean we have to drop it to come back? I won't do that. You destroyed me financially. I already, just after paying for my uncle, barely had anything saved to keep me afloat. And then you're telling me I can't even have any other gainful employment until 4 months later you finally terminate me. And then as a paramedic, you can't, unless you're nationally registered. It's not like I could just jump to another state and work as a paramedic. I'd have to get nationally registered and then take their test to be able to work as a paramedic. So it's not easily transferable. Even in New York, I couldn't get, even in Long Island where I live, I couldn't get a job as a paramedic because it's attached to a hospital. So the healthcare workers had a mandate. So I wouldn't waive my right for back pay because I'm in such a hole because of this. Everything has a domino effect. My bills were all backed up, and the job that I have now is not anything near what I was getting paid. So I can't even get myself out of that hole. Right. So I would never give that up, or whatever civil rights entail.
When you decided to let it be known you're not doing this, did any of your family and friends think that you were crazy, or were they supportive of you?
A lot of family thought I was crazy, although they never said it to my face. I would have a relative that anytime I would post something would go back and forth with me in Instagram DMs. But I'm not going to give any attention to that because you were sending me articles from meme.com. Like what resource is that? You know, people don't know how to actually get articles that are peer reviewed or in the last 5 years. They'll just pick anything that is somebody's complete opinion, which is extremely annoying to try and argue with. And then I had family that the first Christmas after being placed on leave without pay told me and my one sister, because we are unvaccinated, we were to test to join Christmas. And we're like, we're not going to take a COVID test just because we're unvaccinated. Clearly, it's already been proven that people who are vaccinated can still get COVID. So why do we have the test because we're unvaccinated? We're not going to do that. Which caused turmoil initially with my mom and my dad. So my dad was upset because it was upsetting my mom that we wouldn't attend Christmas with everyone. And shortly after, he kind of retreated and he's like, I support you guys in whatever you do. If you're not going to go to Christmas, we're not either. So it was a happy moment for him to stand by our side and then support us. But we never did get to attend that Christmas. And ironically, everybody who did got COVID.
Wow. You know, I have been hearing so many stories of people saying that their family members just alienated them. You're not wearing a mask or you're unvaccinated. We don't want you around. But the funny part is that prior to like this whole pandemic, or should I say plandemic situation, when people used to just have like a mild cold or allergies, no one cared. No, we used to just hug each other, whatever. Yeah, no one was going crazy. And I remember like in 2015, I had gone to the hospital. I had like this persistent cough that just wouldn't go away. I called a taxi. It was like around 5 or 6 in the morning. And I was coughing my life away. The taxi driver didn't care. I got to the hospital. The doctors and the nurses didn't care. No one cared. No one was running away from me. They came and approached me. No one was wearing a mask. They touched me with their bare hands. And then once they were done, they would just go to the sink, soap and water, and that's it. So how do we go from that to like, oh my God, it's the end of the world, you're sick, you have a runny nose, you're sneezing, you're coughing, you're about to kill me. Like, I just don't get it. And like, for everyone's life to just be like put on pause and destroyed because it was purposely destroyed because we decided to rebel against the system. And you know, I must say that I thank you and anybody that decided to stand up for this, because I feel like had it not been for us, I think things would have been even worse.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I struggle a lot with leaving New York. And I think the main reason is because when the numbers get smaller here, we might lose the fight. And I just feel like I have to see it through because I have the, I guess, benefit. I don't have kids, right? I'm not married. So I don't have to have this conversation with somebody to get up and go. And initially, there was attachments with certain family members and certain friends. But thinking back, going through all this, like I did this by myself. Like nobody really reached out a hand. Not that they don't love me, my friends and family, but I was by myself. And I'm holding on to people that couldn't hold on to me in the hardest times. So I detached from that reason to not leave, but every time I think about leaving, I think about this fight and how much everybody has fought and put into it, and the more the less people we get, the easier it is for us to not get anywhere. And it's like I feel like I just have to stay and see it through, because once we lose New York, I feel like it's just a domino effect for other states at that point. It's just going to be state after state that's going to comply or follow after New York.
Yeah, I've said that numerous times when I was like addressing everything that was happening, because some people don't know this. So they did Event 201. Event 201 was a scenario for an incoming pandemic that was launched October 2019, and they did it here in New York. It was the Johns Hopkins University and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So then all of a sudden, here come COVID, I mean, what are the odds of that happening? And New York was the epicenter. They honestly had the meeting, and then the video is still on YouTube. They have different parts. Event 201 was done in New York. And what was the place that was getting hit the hardest with the propaganda and the death toll that they kept piling up, and the restrictions and the businesses shutting down everything? It was New York, and then secondly California. And then the other places, nothing was happening, but everything was New York, and people look up to us, and we're supposed to be, America's supposed to be the number one superpower, and everybody wants to come to New York, whether it's to visit, whether it's to live here, because they say if you make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And we did survive. Couldn't apply for unemployment, but we did survive. I also had to get other gigs in order to make it. And obviously not making the same amount that I was making, but I feel like I'm still proud of myself, and you should be proud of yourself, because honestly, I felt like if I would have gotten this injection, knowing what I knew and knowing that I'm like, I don't want this, I would have felt like I sold my soul for money. Like they put a price on my head, and this is what I'm worth. And I'm not trying to shame anybody, okay? This is like, this whole stuff is to be educational and for people to understand, right? So maybe there could be a little bit more empathy and compassion, because people will call you selfish, but you were a paramedic though. So how is it that people like you were, 7 p.m. banging pots? Heroes, and then you became zero, you became nothing. And people are just quiet, and it bothers me, because we can't move forward and pretend like nothing happened. We can't do that. So with that being said, I want to ask you, what are your final words with everything that happened? What would you like the public to hear, the world to know? What do you have to say?
Keep educating yourself, and always question everything. It was Ronald Reagan, I think, said, freedom's never one generation away from extinction. And it's true. If you don't fight for your freedom, it's not just given to you. We're Americans, and we have certain rights, but if we don't defend them, if we don't fight for them, they're gone. Easy. People argue so much with the Second Amendment, but once you take that away, there's no way to defend yourself against tyranny. Any of our rights, you take anything that we've been violated with this far, the minute they start chipping away at that, we have nothing. And always question things from the government. They don't care about you. Do they know you personally? Do they know your situation? Do they know your family? Do they know everything you went through? Don't let anybody tell you that something is good for you. Only you're going to know that. The way your body is going to handle any type of medication or experiment is going to be different. No one has the right to tell you that it's good for you. Or even if you're pregnant, it won't touch your unborn baby. How do you know that? Where are the studies? There are no studies. We already know that vaccines take years to make and perfect. So why trust that within months we can have a successful vaccination? Listen to the stories of the people that have adverse reactions. Whether it's from that or not, just listen and make your decision. Inform yourself with everything possible, and then make your decision. Don't just quickly make it on one piece of advice from the news, because they always tell the truth, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, with that being said, Carin, thank you so much. And thank you for your service and everything that you have done. And definitely you should be proud of yourself and continue to stand up for freedom and for the truth. And I hope that when people find this video, that they think about the things that you're saying and sit back and analyze what you went through. Because everyone here has a unique story, and I think it's valuable, and I think it was worthy of people showing empathy and compassion. And I hope that people sit back and think about what they have done and see how they can fix the mistakes moving forward, so that maybe in the near future, we won't continue to have things like this happening again and again and again. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
The fruit of everything good in life begins with a challenge. Everything is uphill that's worthwhile. And it's not going to come to you, and it's not going to fall in your lap, and it's not going to be something that, oh my gosh, it just was so simple. It's always going to be difficult.
You have to be committed through the storm and the rain and the heartache and the pain and the disappointment, or you're not gonna make it. Anybody can dream it, but you'll never see it until you're willing to be committed to it. You cannot get people to believe in your dream until you believe in it yourself. You have to invest in what you dream for. A golf club is just a golf club. You can pay $500 or $5,000 for it. It's just a golf club until you put it into the hands of Tiger Woods. When you put it into the hands of Tiger Woods, the value shoots up. It's the same set of clubs. All you added was commitment. When you get it in the hands of somebody who is committed to a dream, who's been working when they was 5, and swinging when they were 6, and swinging when they were 9, and swinging when they were 12. Oh yes, you're gonna get a great return because there is a great investment. Do you have anything that you're dreaming, that you're willing to be committed to enough to see it happen?
You need a why. Why do you need a why? Because some days you're going to look at that alarm clock and you're going to say, I don't want to get up. But that why is going to say, I'll push yourself. Get up. Your mama needs you. Your daddy needs you. Your children need you. Get up. Your why is going to push you when you can't push yourself. When you want to quit and give up, your why is going to give you that edge you need, that advantage you need, that lift that you need to get to the next level. Your why. What your why does for you is says, you can't quit. You can't give up. You can't stop. If there's no money, you make up something. You go print it. If nobody's giving you an opportunity to create it, your goals are going to push you. Your dreams are going to push you. The opportunity of a lifetime is going to drive you. You will study as long as it takes. You won't go to sleep until you have the knowledge that it takes to do what you're able to do.
If you do what is easy, your life will be hard.
If you do what is easy, complain about your situation, your circumstances. Stand around and be a volunteer victim like everybody else. Surrender and give up on your dreams. Become depressed and bitter and angry. Anybody can do that. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, keep coming back again and again and again. Get up dressed every day, knowing some way, somehow, with a spirit of expectation, I can do this. If you do that over and over and over again, your life will be easy.
You have to understand that easy, quick nonsense is made for the fucking sheep, and the sheep never fucking win. Choose the hard path, the path of responsibility, hard work, and sacrifice, the path of discipline, humility, and ownership that ultimately leads to freedom.
When everybody is against you or don't believe in you no more, it's a lonely feeling. Oh, it hurts very badly. I know what that's like. They look at you with that look and say, why don't you try something else? Why don't you give up?
Get away from these people that's in your life that ain't doing nothing. Get away from people in your life that's hating. Get away from them. Get away from them. If you take an oak tree seed and you put it in a 2-foot pot, that seed will never become the oak tree that oak trees are capable of becoming, because it's gonna get stifled by the 2-foot pot. Now check this out. Ain't nothing wrong with the seed. The seed just fell prey to the environment. Don't you allow your environment to dictate the oak tree that you become.
Anytime you move from being normal to trying to be exceptional, people aren't going to like that shit. Those normal people, it makes them feel like shit, so they're going to judge you.
And that's why every true leader, they're called weird. They're called eccentric. When you do the things of real leadership, you're going to be called strange. Get strong enough in your own skin that when people laugh at you or when they throw stones at you, you keep on going.
I respect any motherfucker that wakes up every day and work their ass off to live their life and lifestyle. Clubbing, partying, hanging out, that ain't for me. I'm gonna be out here running in the hot sun, practicing. While everybody else is clubbing and hanging out, you got your focus right.
Don't expect people to understand you. Don't expect it to make sense to anybody why you've got to do this, why you have got to go, why you leave. This is a good job. I'm going. They pay you well. I'm going. Why? I don't understand. You don't have to. I'm going for me. This is something I have got to do. How are you going to make it? I don't know, but I will. The universe responds to the man or woman that refuses to be denied, because that is your commitment. That business that you want, that book you want to write, that dream that you have of controlling your destiny, that is yours. That's available to you. But you've got to be willing to stand there and face disappointment, not have support, be lonely, doubt yourself sometimes, be rejected again and again and again, become bankrupt if necessary, again and again and again, and refuse to turn around until life gives it up. Life will always be, to a large extent, what you make it, not what circumstances will make of it, not what other people will make of it, not what other people say it will be, not what the environment will try and dictate to you, but what you make of your life. So when you're uncommon, get ready for the criticism. When you're uncommon, get ready for the opposition. When you're uncommon, get ready for the common people not to understand you. If I decided to experience the fear of rejection, the fear of no, the fear of failure, the fear of standing by myself, the fear of people not liking me, what else is available? Of taking a chance, a fear of losing it all. What else is available to me? People are going to think you're crazy. You don't have nothing but lint in the corner of your pocket. You're out here talking about living your dream. And people laughing at you. And they're doubting you. It takes guts, ladies and gentlemen. But let me tell you, I believe in revenge like Frank Sinatra. He said the best revenge is massive success.
Instead of killing them with kindness, torture them with success.
Good evening. My name is Carin Rosado. I'm a paramedic who was terminated from FDNY. I've come here today hoping that you understand the effects mandates have caused myself and many others like me. You see, I grew up in the foster care system and had a job since I was in the 5th grade. I was a kid, but I knew that I wanted more out of life, and I wanted to be in a position to help others in any capacity. And when the opportunity opened for me to become a paramedic for the FDNY, I seized it. I enjoyed helping people every day, and twice in my career, I've met young people in the foster care system who thought they wouldn't amount to anything or have a career like mine in the FDNY, until I shared my story with them. And I immediately saw hope in their eyes, that they now have someone to relate to, and is proof that if they push hard enough, they can too make it. I now feel like that kid in foster care. Excuse me. Who feels like they have everything stacked against them. I cannot get a job within New York City with the skills that I have. I now don't know where my next paycheck will come from. I've worked throughout the pandemic, and while it may seem like a broken record to say we were praised one day and forgotten the next, it is heartbreakingly true. Throughout the pandemic, we were seeing and experiencing some of the worst days in our career, working more hours than normal with the call volumes at an all-time high. It was mentally, emotionally, and physically draining, but we showed up every day. To invade our private medical history and choices and terminate us over the vaccine that has carve-outs for athletes or entertainers because they boost the economy has nothing to do with science. You see, I now can get a job playing as a paramedic on TV, but I can't use my actual skills that I was trained for and have 10 years experience on the community that actually needs it. Where's the logic in that? The CDC finally acknowledges the unvaccinated with previous exposure hold the same immunity as the vaccinated. So why isn't the CDC following that science? Why can't we acknowledge natural immunity?
Time's expired.
I'm not a threat to anyone. 30 more seconds.
Thank you.
I'm not a threat to anyone, and I hope you will stand with us and drop these carve-outs and allow us to stand with our brothers and sisters against New York State. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now I'd like to call on Dominic Francois, followed